Some time ago, when the Haunted Mansion reopened from its long refurbishment and the pandemic, Walt Disney World News released an article where it mentioned that one of the other changes being considered for the Haunted Mansion was the removal of the hangman at the stretching room. Several discussions aroused supporting the removal due to sensitivity issues related with finding a way out, if you know what I mean. In this video, we will analyze a simple question that Disney Imagineers are pondering. Is the hangman a gruesome reminder of the consequences of mental health in the middle of a Disney park? Or is he a necessary piece to a classic story? Let's discuss it here in Stories from the Mansion. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that more Mansioneers may find our way with us. Let's reach 2,000 subscribers by the end of May. Now let's get back inside, shall we? Disneyland is a product of its time, and each of its attractions were developed by artists which lived almost 70 years ago. Their values, their humor, their fears and view of the world was influenced by the decades and country where they lived. Two classic attractions, the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean, were both developed during the 50s and 60s, that is, 70 or 60 years ago. Back then the world was in a very different shape than it is now. Disneyland will never be complete. It will continue to grow as there is imagination left in the world. This quote by Walt Disney is always used to justify any changes Disney executives make on classic Disney attractions. Disneyland has changed many times since its opening. The Fantasyland rides changed completely during the 80s. Their show buildings were completely bulldozed. Even the classic murals were ripped apart. Snow White changed from a nightmarish experience to a full book report. Alice in Wonderland changed from a whimsical ride of sensations to another book report. Pirates of the Caribbean had to change a scene a couple of years ago, an iconic one, which was even portrayed in t-shirts, pins, and memorabilia. It was completely remade. Other sexist moments were changed for Jack Sparrow, or even slightly altered. A classic ride had been modified to cater to modern audiences' sensibilities, but the final result left us with a weird joke on rum and hens, and left some folks wondering, would they then remove alcohol from the ride in the future? Would they then remove guns? It makes us think, what is the limit of sanitizing fiction where you can be sensible without destroying the sense of the story? The Jungle Cruise, an opening day attraction, also recently had one scene changed. All of the native scenes involving depictions of cannibalism or stereotypes about African nations were changed for monkeys and butterflies, and in another scene where a rhino is attacking some explorers, the animatronics were changed for a multi-ethnic expedition with backstories. With these changes, one has to think, what was the purpose of the original scenes? And then have another question. How can a substitute perpetuate the purpose of that scene? For example, the rhino joke remains the same with all harmful stereotypes removed. But did the danger of the natives attacking the boat remain with the scene that substituted it? The third attraction affected by these changes is Splash Mountain. The case of this attraction is interesting. Many other attractions such as Maelstrom or California Screaming had been changed to incorporate IP. Splash Mountain could seem as one of those, but it also has been advertised as a change due to sensitivity issues. Since the ride was based on a now 80-year-old cartoon which to today's standards contains harmful racial stereotypes, I won't discuss why Splash Mountain isn't based on the racist part of the movie, but on the animated part, which honestly no one remembered. I will simply use Splash Mountain as an example of another ride which is being changed due to specifically sensitivity issue. I've seen the concept art and it seems that the ride will not change that much, but I don't see a climax or even an antagonist. I don't see Dr. Facilier or any of his minions, and that takes me to the next issue, the lack of antagonists. Disney animation recently features no antagonists, no classic villains as before, as if it was trying to avoid all depiction of evil. We went from the murderous evil queen, from Chernabog, from Maleficent, to a mother with trauma who keeps her family in loop. I feel the same is happening with attractions that are changed. They've lost their antagonist. They've lost their sharpness. The scenes changed in Jungle Cruise removed the danger. The new scenes in Splash Mountain removed the climax and villain. Snow White's rides omits the moment the witch dies, leaving her ending with no conclusion whatsoever. They become bland experiences with no climax, with no punchline. A happy ending is brighter when the hero or the audience must overcome more hardship. Now let's take this idea to the mansion. The mansion is a product of its time, based both off Gothic books from the 19th century and the ghost movies from the 60s, and also dark rides and ghost trains from the era. Gothic horror stories have a common subject: death. That's right, you heard it. You can't have ghosts without death. Death is always the center of these stories. Tragic deaths, self-inflicted death, mysterious deaths, and the list goes on. Death is always associated with something else. Corpses. The skeleton, the skull, a corpse, they're all icons associated to death and appeared frequently in movies from the time. Even one of the movies that inspired the mansion had a gag where a hangman skeleton was released from the ceiling to hang on top of the audience during the presentation of the movie. Snow White's ride had several skeletons in the ride. It was a thing that simply was tied in people's imagination to gothic horror and danger. The hangman in concept art began as a reaction from the mansion's owner to her bride's haunting, like a revenge from the dead. The concept was thought of since the beginning with a see-through ceiling, until Captain Gore was removed altogether and the corpse was given to the ghost host. The scene is now part of a dark joke that works as a confirmation that the voice you hear is that of a dead man, who now, after death, laughs at his own tragedy. Our hangman covers a different purpose than Phantom Manor's. There is a victim from a jealous father. Here, he is a victim of fear, as Captain Gore was, a foreboding warning of what is to come inside the house. The ghost host's solution to his predicament is quite common in Gothic literature and film. I've even shown you clips in former videos from where the idea came, yet many ask a question. Should a day in the happiest place on earth include a depiction of self-inflicted death? Should children see it? Phantom Manor removed all nooses a couple of weeks ago, except for their hangman. But I think it's just a way to start as they think of removing their hangman. It's only a matter of time until this happens in the US. Should this happen though, is this depiction really that profound and hurtful? Let's go back to pirates. What is a pirate? A corrupt sailor who stole treasures from royal ships and other cargo, usually drunk, whores, and used guns or weapons. If you went into a pirate ride, would you not expect a drunk man with a gun? Let's go back to the mansion then. A haunted house, that is, a house with some tragic series of deaths, which does not allow ghosts to rest, and so they manifest themselves in the places where they died. Yes, I'm using that word, died, death, dead. if we walk into a house where death occurred, should we not expect to find a corpse? To find information about death, the afterlife, and the obscure? Because there is a lot of obscurity in the mansion, a lot of witchcraft and other sort of supernatural paraphernalia thrown here and there. There are elements that a story must have in order to work. I think the hangman is irreplaceable. The joke and the shock it produces would need to be changed entirely with something completely new for something else to work. I think it should not be removed, and those who might be shocked to see such a scene in a ride should probably think twice before entering a house filled with the spirits of the dead. In other words, if you are sensitive to death, you might better stay away from this attraction and from any haunted house at all. In fact, if you are sensitive to death, and you see a pet cemetery and a family plot in the entrance, that's the best warning you can get to not go into that ride. Still, others will say Disneyland must be for all, and that all rides must be for all to experience without experiencing bad emotions. So I will close with 2 questions I have on the matter. What could substitute this initial shock in the ride that could retain the same intensity? And I mean the hangman. What could substitute what the hangman causes in you who rides the ride? And 2, where do we draw a line? What will be offensive in 30 years and require a modification of classic stories from other times, of subjects that truly happened and affected humanity? I know Disneyland is not a museum. I would sometimes like for it to be a museum so that nothing was ever lost. But the constant change Walt talked about was not regarding sensitivity, in my opinion. Its constant change was something that regarded the improvement of technology. Something more like when the Hatbug's ghost was brought back to the mansion, or when Jack Sparrow audio animatronic was introduced to pirates, or when the new illumination technologies improved the Snow White, the Alice, and the Peter Pan ride experiences. That's what Walt meant, adding more, not subtracting. But that's my humble opinion, of course. Please leave your comments on the matter and let's have a discussion here. I wanted it to be a decent discussion, please. Don't start calling yourself names. YouTube is really sensitive right now. So I will hear all opinions that are on favor or against the removal of the hangman. I really want to read your arguments because I know everybody here is a 100% fan of the Haunted Mansion. We are 1,400 fans of the Haunted Mansion. That's the first ride we ride when we go to Disneyland. That's the ride we want open when we visit the park. So, if they take the hangman away, they're basically reducing the experience. So, what do you think? Should it or should it not be removed? That's your opinion. I want to hear it. If you're a fan of the Haunted Mansion and you have yet not subscribed, please do so we can reach 2,000 souls who love the mansion. I really want this channel to be really big, so I'll keep doing more videos on the matter. That is all for now. Rest in peace, and I'll see you all a little later.